We're talking about a guaranteed income for the whole country, $7,000 for a family of four, which would not only benefit the welfare recipient, but it would benefit the man that is making the low wage that has to receive supplementary from the welfare. That is a low-income worker. He would receive that incentive, and he would be able to take care of his family without receiving supplementary welfare. Because as it is, making $6 to $7 and $80 a week, if you have a large family, if you have more than 4 kids, you do have to receive supplementary welfare. Now let's go back to the fact of New York City. The fact that our government has decided that the people in New York City is getting more money than they deserve. So what happens? Governor Rockefeller and his colleagues can push through a proposal that would cut New York State out of $150 billion when it comes to welfare. Because if you don't take it back, it's going to be chaos across the nation. And y'all heard from Mrs. Tillman last week. I'm quite sure she talked to you and told you what was happening. So if you don't take it back, it's going to be more chaos in the cities. There's going to be more unrest because our people ain't going to starve. And we ain't about to see them starve. We're going to get food and clothing and shelter one way or the other. And ain't one thing you can do, or the city police can do, let's fill up the jail. They were made for people anyway. I ain't never seen them put no dogs in there. So
that is, number one, expanding existing security programs, Social Security, unemployment insurance, and fair labor standards are the minimum wage. 2, removing the cost of these programs to the poor and charging the well-off for contributions toward benefits, which they are now receiving without having to pay proportionately as much as others. And 3, reforming the income tax structure along the lines of the present and past administration's own proposals, which would move the poor from liability and plug the loopholes by which the affluent can elude their share of the burden of administering a just society and a complex economy. I can't at this point emphasize too strongly how disillusioning it is to those of us working on this problem when we see only minimal efforts to take on the problem of tax reform. The amount of money that is well known that is lost in this country through oil depletions and through the mark-off on depreciating investment property, the amount of money that people are able to escape paying in taxes by buying municipal. In this phase, we call upon a system of universal monthly family allowances under Social Security, which would recoup unneeded funds from most middle income and all upper income families through the tax system. Family allowances, as you know, is a universally accepted thing in practically all of the Western developed countries of the world. It would provide a regular, dependable monthly stipend to low-income families, young families, and for the struggling lower middle class. This family security would be a right under the Social Security system upon presentation of requisite birth certificates without a means test or demeaning investigations and surveillance. Factual further combating poverty now and in the future, we call for 5 universal national medical care for all children, beginning with the prenatal period. 6, revision of the agricultural program to permit output of perishable commodities to rise as high as possible and their prices to drop. At the present time, the country is spending some $4.5 billion for farm subsidies and less than $500 million to feed the poor in a food stamp program. 7, expansion of on-the-job special training and unemployment programs, especially for public services, such as hospitals, schools, corrections.
The fields and displace those people who have no other talents but agrarian talents, but it also has taken over their homes. And where have these people gone? They first moved to the edge of the plantation. And incidentally, I should comment that the reason that Green Monster is there, part of the reason is the government subsidizes the owner of the land and tells him not to plant. So it doesn't pay to keep the sharecropper on the land and feed him year-round and his family. It is easier to put the oil and the gas in the machine. And these people have had to move to the edge of the plantation, and from the edge of the plantation they've come to New York, they've gone to Kansas City, to St. Louis, to Chicago, and a variety of other places. But in the main, they come to New York. And when they come to New York, they come with the same hope, and let me remind you, come with the same hope that the immigrants came before. New York is a beacon light. But they come here, and there's no cotton to chop in New York City. There's no corn to hoe. The result is they come and they become frustrated. Somehow now, just as we subsidize the farmer not to plant, we've got to subsidize to structure in some skills into the people, retrain them, and make them income producers. Until that time, with our left hand we should work to provide skills. With our right hand we should give what I call an income maintenance.
Statement at this time and day. The fact that 4 out of every 5 recipients on welfare is children, and also mothers that are caring for children. And these parents cannot go out to work, and the children can't work. In fact, the issue is not finding more jobs or recruiting welfare recipients to get off welfare. The issue is more money. How can you possibly tell a client that they must get a job and get off welfare when they have to receive enough money to maintain their families, and the minimum wage is still at $1.60 an hour? One of the things that we have asked is that they raise the minimum wage to $3.50 an hour, which would enable, starting with a family of 4, to earn enough money in order for him or she to take care of their families. Once you start talking about jobs, you have to start thinking about all of the people that are receiving welfare. It's not only welfare recipients that receive welfare. And I have to follow up some of the things that Mr. Sutton said, because it was in the line of the remarks that I have to make. For example, some of the farm subsidies that are receiving money. I think you have Senator Eastland in Mississippi is receiving something like $289 million, $289,000 to not plant cotton. That money could have gone into the pockets of poor people. Eastland is a rich man in Mississippi. He doesn't need that type of money. But instead of the federal government allocating this money for poor people, he'd rather give it to Eastland not to plant cotton, which is going to force sharecroppers out of a job, and it's going to cause practically all of them to starve. Speaking on the issue, I might have 17 states, but you've got 33 states that it's not going to help, and New York is included. $7,000 beginning at a family of 4. One of the things that you keep talking about is what is a guaranteed annual income. We don't want you to set no fixed price that people should get as a guaranteed income. We also found out through secret documents that Mayor Lindsay, and I'm sorry he's not here this morning to hear what I got to say about him, that he himself was planning to cut the budget even further in terms of welfare. Now what happens? All of this has come through in New York City. We have fought it in the court. We won the case. And then you look around and figure out, well, these guys are talking about they want to help people and they want to put food on the table. And what happens? They appealed the case that we want to stop them from implementing the cut July 1st. They appealed. Hair looking nice. And that money shouldn't have went there, because if those ladies want their hair looking nice, they make enough damn money to go to any beauty parlor there is in Washington. They had no business allocating $10,000 for that. That's $10,000 that could have fed at least 10,000 people, because you could have gave each one of them $1,000. And it would have been spent in less than 2 days. With the high cost of living in New York City, $1,000 is nothing. With the high cost of living in New York City, the checks is nothing. Because every time they increase the checks, they decrease the checks, food goes up 2%. So they ain't getting nothing. They are cutting them everywhere that you can really look. They're cutting them when it comes to food. They're cutting them when it comes to money to really buy the things that they need. The cost of living. The federal government says the checks must match the cost of living. It has not done that. The way